Hey friends, Pastor Steve here. Just got back from our lunch and discussion, Leading a Limp with a Limp, Chapter 2, Why It Is Necessary to Count the Cost First. You know, and our culture thinks about leaders, there's kind of an unrealistic expectation that if you're a leader in leadership, you know how to do everything well and right and correctly. And if you make a mistake, something's wrong with you and you're a bad person and shouldn't be in leadership anymore. I mean, leaders are supposed to be perfect. Plus, they're supposed to be good looking and be good public speakers also. That's what leaders are supposed to be. Of course, the reality is, once you get into leadership, or if you're looking at leadership and have clear eyes, clear vision about what's going to be happening, leadership costs. It's costly. It brings a lot of unique experiences into your life, some of which are great, many of which are just costly to you as a person. You got to kind of work your way through things. For instance, crisis, complexity, betrayal, loneliness, weariness, and glory. Now, I'll briefly talk through these elements, basic elements in the chapter, but it's this simple. These things, if you're in leadership, will happen to you. It's not if they will happen, it's when they will happen. And beginning to figure out how do you react and respond, and did that help the situation or actually makes the situation worse, and next time what would be wiser and better. We always, as leaders, we have to keep learning. But these things will happen to you. Crisis. If you're in leadership, your life will be full of crisis because the things erupt in chaos and things spin out of control, and you're the leader, and people go to who to get the answers? Who's going to guide us? Who's going to navigate us? Or who's going to help us figure this one out? You. You're the leader. So crisis. Well, think about this. We talked this around the tables. When crisis comes to you, how do you react and respond? What's your normal response? Do you hide? Pretend it's not there, stick your head in the sand? Do you try and control things quick before it spins out of control and just kind of put the pieces back together as fast as you can? Do you blame? Do you find somebody to blame? So it's all their fault. And shift the attention over there. You just work harder until you about can't work any greater degree without physically exhausting. I'm just going to work harder until this crisis is over. What do you do when crisis comes? It's coming. It has come. You may be in the middle of them right now, or it certainly will be coming. How do you react usually? And then, really importantly, does that help? Or could you make a slight adjustment, or even a moderate or a major adjustment to change how you think about crisis when it comes your way? Because as a leader, it will come, sometimes day after day. I mean, in my particular role as a pastor, this is one of the sentences I hear most frequently. I have a question. Can you answer this question? It's a crisis, whether it be small or big. It's my job to help walk through that chaos with that person. So how do you handle crisis? Next, complexity. Leaders have to deal with the level of complexity of things that followers don't, because they're following the leader. And when things get complex, they just shift it upstairs and leaders get to deal with it. All different perspectives. People with different values. And the economic scene today, all kinds of crazy stuff going on, right? Very, very complex. Well, what are you facing now that's really complex? What is it? And what makes it so hard? What are all the different moving pieces? Do you even know what the moving pieces are yet? Or is it that complex? You're still trying to figure it out. And when things get really complex, how do you usually respond? Does it help? Or do you hide, withdraw, shift to somebody else? I mean, what do you usually do? And if you could get outside yourself and look at yourself dealing with a complex issue, what would be the way you'd like to be able to handle complexity? We talked about that in our tables. We talked about betrayal. Now, this is true of Jesus Christ. He picked disciples. One of them was Judas, and Judas betrayed him. After Jesus mentored him, discipled him, he got the same advantage of every other disciple. Judas betrayed him. When we lead, sooner or later, we will end up with a Judas, someone who will betray us. And betrayal can get really tricky because if we respond to that betrayal, sometimes the betrayer takes a little bit of truth and distorts it a bit and makes us look bad as a leader. And betrayal gets really tricky. So how do you deal with betrayal? Now, what's your most recent experience with betrayal? And there, of course, there are different levels of experience of betrayal, right? From just minor stuff to life, almost life-altering betrayal. It's like, I can't believe that happened. So think about your most recent experience experiencing betrayal. What was it? Friend, colleague, family member, competitor, maybe an enemy? And all that matters, but betrayal is betrayal, right? And how do you usually respond to betrayal? Anger? Rage? Withdrawal? Silence? Give up? Break off relationships? What do you do with betrayal? And the next time betrayal happens, what would you like to have in your mind to help you deal with betrayal in a better way for you as a leader? Betrayal is no fun. I've experienced what I would call minor betrayals with staff over the years, not talking about current staff here at Cornerstone, that were strange and odd. Like I had a staff person lie to me about something that had nothing to do with anything, and then they came and told me that they lied, and that was a betrayal. It was odd. We got that figured out, talked it through. But I've had one massive betrayal in my ministry career, and as I shared at the lunch, it took me 14 years to forgive that person. Now, not that I wasn't working on it, not that I hated them or wanted bad things to happen to them, but the betrayal was so deep that it took that long. So just remember, when betrayal goes deep, it's deep work to get out from underneath it and move on. And that's okay. And maybe that's where you're at. So we talked about stories of betrayal. Then we talked about loneliness. Because the higher you are up an organizational ladder, or I prefer it, the lower you are in the triangle of servant leadership. So a real leader is at the bottom of the triangle, and you serve people above you. The more people you have above you that you're serving, the fewer friendships you will have with the people above you, and the fewer people, literally, in your town that understand what you're dealing with. There are just not a lot of people around. For instance, when I started out, I shared this at lunch when I was a church of 50 people. Half the churches in the U.S. are under 100 people. So I can find a lot of pastors who know the kinds of things a pastor in a small church goes through. There's lots of them. You can sit and talk and have coffee. Well, I'm in a larger church now. Let's say a church of 700, 800, 900 people. Well, not a lot of churches that size. So there's fewer people I can talk to about what's going on with me as a pastor, and that they can understand. It gets lonelier. So what do you do with that? Are you all alone as a leader? And what does that loneliness do to you? Do you just kind of shut yourself off? And you're just a business person, but you don't have friendship with people because people seem to be a drain on you? Do you reach out to people right away and try and get over that loneliness and get connected? I mean, what do you do? And if you're in a time of loneliness right now, and I would suggest most leaders are, do you think there's some things you could do, some steps you could take to step out of loneliness into being connected with people who can understand you and could be helpful for you? And those are steps only us as leaders can take. No one's going to do it for us, right? So we talk about stories of loneliness. We also talk about stories of weariness. Weariness is just the reality of leadership. And you may be in a leadership role where your level of weariness is always high. It's just always up there, almost too much. Other times we're in leadership roles where it's low and then it goes up and then it gets almost too high and then it comes back down again. I don't know what your particular situation is, but weariness is a part of leadership. It just is. So what is the one thing right now that's causing you the most weariness in your work as a leader? What is it? You need to think about that. Talk about that with somebody. What is it that just kind of pushes you to the point of, I don't know if I even want to do this anymore. And then once you realize that you're that weary and it hits you, what do you do with it? You tempted to give up, lose hope? Do you run off to, take a break? Do you get a vacation? What do you do with this weariness so you can begin to recover and get refreshed? Very, very important. So those are the kinds of things we talked about today. Now, actually, each of these, crisis, complexity, betrayal, loneliness, weariness. Oh, glory. I forgot glory. Sorry. Glory is when everything goes right. You're a leader and you accomplish the mission. The great thing happens. Things are successful. The plan works out. And there's this moment of glory where you can celebrate. Isn't that great? And then that's over. And Monday morning comes and the next crisis comes, right? So glory is great, but it's not our constant companion. So the rest of the book, what we'll do is we'll just talk through one chapter at a time: crisis, complexity, betrayal, loneliness, weariness, and glory. To help us go a little bit deeper and think about, if I count the cost as a leader, this is all going to happen to me. How is God at work in my life to get me through these things in a way that helps the people around me and in a way that honors the God who made me, who has met me in his son Jesus. So that's what's up. So enjoy chapter 2. Next week we'll be reading chapter 3. Get ready for that. If you're able to come in person for lunch, that's great. If not, you can hop on the link from the email and see the next follow-up video. Next week Dave will be doing it because I'm going to be on vacation with my grandkids in Michigan. Should be a lot of fun. See you guys later. Bye.